Is it a crime to want love? All my life, all I've ever wanted was love. I just wanted true love. I grew up with a single mother with 4 kids and I was the first daughter. My dad was just in the next town, but he never cared about any of us. My mom was a seamstress and she did her best for us. I dropped out of school after senior high to help her in a small shop because at that point I could also sew. And I didn't have big dreams. I just wanted to meet a man, fall in love, have children, and live happily ever after. I was so naive and innocent back then. I met a man we will call Mark in my 2nd year in high school. He was a teacher in the general arts department while I was doing business. He was doing his national service in our school at the time. And he was the youngest teacher in the school. He was also a very handsome young man. Soon, he started teaching my class maths. I knew most of the girls in the school were feeling him, including me. For some reason, I thought Mark was my soulmate, and I was going to spend the rest of my life with him. I was not the prettiest girl in the school, but I felt that if he just spent some time with me, he would realize we were meant to be together. At this point, I was 17 years old, while he was around 24 years old. Mark held after-school classes for a fee for the students who were interested. He charged 250 cedis for a month. The school closed at 4 p.m. and then at 4:30 p.m. Mark had his after-school classes for 1 hour 30 minutes. My mom didn't have the money and said I should study myself after school. But I just needed that opportunity to be close to him. I cried and pleaded with my mom and promised her that I would take the first position in my class if she paid for the classes for me. And I usually took the 15th to 20th position. She finally agreed after I had pleaded and pleaded. And she used the hard-earned money to pay for Mark's classes for me. And so I joined, not because I wanted to excel, but I wanted to make things clear to Mark that he was my soulmate. Now, one day after lessons, I was the last person to leave his class, which I did intentionally. I had this feeling he wanted me to because sometimes I would catch him staring at me during class. I waited for everyone to leave and acted like I was busy writing something. He was also at his desk marking some papers. After some time, I packed my books into my bag and stood up. As I was slowly walking out of his class, I prayed he should stop me and talk to me. And as I was about to walk out of the door, he called my name and my heart jammed. I turned around quickly. He asked me to come and help him pack some books on his desk. My heart was racing as I went back to meet him. He started asking me personal questions about my life. I was smiling sheepishly and telling myself in my head that I was right. He liked me too. As we were talking, he put his hand on my hand, and before I knew it, he was pulling me close to him, and his lips were on mine. He pulled back immediately and scratched his throat. He stood up and took his bag and asked me to follow him. He lived close to the school and he took me to his house. Immediately we entered his room, he pushed me on the bed and pounced on me. He acted like he couldn't get enough of me. He made love to me that night and he broke my virginity. He didn't force me and I enjoyed it just as much as he did. In bed that night, I was swimming in the clouds, thinking he loved me just as much as I loved him. I thought we were going to be together forever, but I went to school the next day and this man acted as if he didn't know me. He refused to look my way, and at first I thought it was because he was shy because of what we have done. And so I waited like I did the day before. And after everyone left, without even giving me a chance to ask him anything, he took me to his house again and slept with me. I wanted to talk to him more afterwards, but he said he was tired and that we can talk more in school the next day. The next day, he ignored me again and didn't even take me to his house. He left immediately he closed his classes. This kept going on for about 2 weeks. I started to feel anxious. Why was he treating me this way? Then a girl in my class told me there was a rumor circulating that he was sleeping with different girls in the school and that he has been seen going to his house with different girls. He stopped coming to the school a week later and I heard he was dismissed by the headmaster. I cried for weeks over my broken heart. We never dated, but I really thought it was the one for me. And he had also broken my virginity. You would have thought I would have learned something from this experience, but no. I still believed in love. I still thought my soulmate was out there. Oh, how foolish I was back then. After school one day, I was at my mom's shop when this man came to pick a dress with his mom. He kept looking at me, and this man was handsome. It was just my spec. I knew he was interested in me. His mom's clothes were not ready and she was in a hurry, so she left him behind. Immediately his mom left, he started talking to me. We spoke a lot and we had so many things in common. He was in the university in a town nearby. He told me he had never vibed with anyone as much as he has with me. I was feeling the same way. He took my number before he left and he called me that night and we spoke all night. I thought this guy was finally the one. He proposed a week later and I said yes. A couple of days later, he invited me over to his hostel and we slept together. I would cook breakfast, pick a vehicle with my money and take the food to him. I would do the same thing at night. And I used my money to prepare the food though. I just wanted him to be okay. I know you must think I'm stupid, but I'm a lover girl. And I love with all my heart. He treated me so good at first. I really felt like I was in a fairy tale. He would call me numerous times a day, sing for me to sleep at night, and was always there for me when I needed him. About 6 months into our relationship, he changed. He was not as attentive as he used to be, and he started to talk to me by heart. Now, despite being in a relationship with this guy, other men wanted me too because I was fair and beautiful, and I was well endowed. But I was in love and was only interested in my man. A year into the relationship, I found out he was cheating, and this broke my heart into pieces. He cried and begged me to forgive him. He said the girl forced herself on him. I knew he was lying, but I loved this man so much, and I still believed he loved me. I forgave him eventually, and he promised never to cheat again. Sometimes he would be very loving and attentive, and at other times he would be distant and rude. Despite all this, I stayed with him. Then one day, I went to his campus to give him food like usual, when an old man driving a car approached me. He stopped his car beside me and asked me my name. I told him, and he said I was very beautiful. He asked me if I could give him my number, and I said no. This man was around 50 years to 60 years old. I was not interested in him, and I had a man anyway. He gave me his card and told me to call him if I changed my mind. When I saw my man later that day, I told him about the old man, and I showed the card to him. When he saw the name on the card, he looked so shocked. He said the old man was one of his lecturers on campus. He said he was failing the man's class, and that if things doesn't change, he will have to resit his class. At first, we were making fun of him, laughing at him for chasing young girls at his age. And then my man kept quiet for some time, and then he said I can help him change his marks. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said we should see the old man being interested in me as a positive thing. He told me to call the lecturer, meet up with him, act as if I was interested in him, and tell him that I have a brother in his class. That is my man. And then I will try to convince him to help my man pass his class. I was against this. I told him to just study hard. Why should I have to go through all this trouble to help you pass your class? This man begged and begged me till I finally gave in. I called the lecturer that night and he wanted to meet up with me the next day. We met at a restaurant close to the university, and this man was clearly interested in me. As we were talking, I told him about my brother in his class. I just wanted to get out of there. He asked me of my brother's name, and I told him things have been very bad at home, and because of that, it has been affecting my brother's ability to study like he used to. I jokingly put my hand on his hand and asked him not to be too hard on my brother. He held my hand and started massaging it. I was getting very uncomfortable, but just because of love, I didn't take my hand away. I started talking to this lecturer often because that was what my man wanted. He wanted me to keep in touch with him till he writes his exams, and then I can block him and then we move on with our life. The lecturer told me his wife had passed away a few years ago, and so he was not married. This man was getting very serious with me. Just a few weeks after we started talking, this man was already saying he wanted to marry me, but I was not interested and I just played along. Then one night, my man looked me in the eyes after we finished making love and asked me to do him a big favor. And guess what the favor was? He wanted me to sleep with his lecturer. He said he knew that if I slept with him, he would definitely pass him. And I was like, what? How can you ask the woman you love to sleep with another man? I left his place angrily. He called me several times to apologize, but I didn't mind him. Mind you, this lecturer has been offering me money, and I've been saying didn't know to it because I knew I was not interested in him. I was just playing with him and I didn't want to take his money too. My man kept apologizing till I forgave him. And then 2 weeks later, he asked me again. He said if I loved him, I should prove it to him by sleeping with his lecturer. This time around, I said okay. I loved him after all, and I would do anything for him. When I agreed to his plan, he hugged me and kissed me all over my face. He said he didn't know what he would do without me. He asked me to sleep with the lecturer that same week. And I was like, okay, no problem. I met up that weekend with the lecturer at his house and we did a do. The man was really rich and his house was big. And even though it was not that good in bed, he treated me very well. When I told my man the news that I had slept with the lecturer, he was very happy. He asked me several times if I made the lecturer promise to pass him. And I said yes. That is the reason why I slept with him in the first place. He started laughing and dancing around the room and hugging me. He told me there was no need to study for the paper then. And I was like, yes, don't study. I have already sacrificed so much for you. This was like in the middle of the semester. The time for exams came and my man went to write his papers. Now, what he didn't know was that I had decided to take my relationship with the lecturer seriously. I had started taking money from him and he was even in the process of renting a shop for me. I didn't sleep with the lecturer because I wanted my boyfriend to pass his exams. I did it for myself. I didn't really love this man, but he treated me so well. And how can a man who claims he loves you ask you to sleep with another man? From the minute he asked me to sleep with the lecturer, I had already started making plans to move on. And why not with a man who had money? He was giving me money left and right. And even though I didn't love him, the money was making the relationship sweet. Oh, and I had also told him that my man was not my brother. I told him he was just a guy who wanted to use me to pass his exams. Finally, my man's results came. I was with a lecturer in his house when I received a call from my man. He said he had failed his papers and asked me what was going on. That is when I told him everything, broke up with him, and blocked his number. He called me with different numbers, asking me how I could betray him like this. He called me a gold digger, among other names, and I kept blocking all the numbers he was using. He texted me a long paragraph, calling me cheap, a prostitute, and a user. He told me Karma would deal with me, but I just ignored him and blocked that number too. I've introduced the lecturer to my mom, and even though she was not okay with the age difference at first, she likes him now. We are planning to get married next year. A couple of weeks ago, my ex contacted me through TikTok, saying he has missed me and wanted us to meet up, but I told him no. But because he started insulting me again, I ended up blocking his account. He's still calling me a gold digger and saying I used him. Am I the asshole? This subscriber needs your opinions, babes. Don't forget to leave some below and subscribe and like this video for more story times. See you tomorrow. Okay, I'm done. Bye.